Hi, and welcome to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We are talking today with Bill Gross. Bill Gross has been on our show before, and I've been on his show, which is fantastic. Bill is a real estate broker who specializes in probate. He is an expert, especially in the Los Angeles area, with deep roots in real estate investing, real estate networking, brokerage. He knows a lot about laws, rules, and he's all over the current events and headlines related to real estate, both positively and in calling them out sometimes. Um, Before we get into it with Bill, I want to remind you, if you miss us here on KCAA 1050 AM all over Southern California, don't forget to catch us on the Building Solid Foundations channel. We are on the Android app, we are on Roku, we are on Amazon Fire. We are not on Apple yet because Apple just doesn't like to play nice with other children, but we'll get there probably eventually. And we are on Spotify, all your favorite podcast platform. We're out there, and you can catch little clips on YouTube. So let's get into this with Bill. I love talking with Bill. He is a man after my own heart, meaning he really likes to dig into the information and the history and what's really going on in the real estate industry and get way beyond the headlines. So, Bill, welcome to Building Solid Foundations. Really glad to have you.
Thanks so much. Always fun, Steve. Always great to talk to you.
So, I met Bill through the Los Angeles County Real Estate Investor Association. He actually hosts the podcast for that organization, which, if you miss it, you need to go catch that. That's a great podcast. And he puts out his weekly newsletter as well, which is great information. I met him through there, and we ended up talking on his program, and then we talked on my program before, and reconnected when I was up there about a month or so ago, and said we need to get back in each other's programs again. Bill, um, tell us a little bit of background on how you ended up here, where you are. Why probate? Why real estate?
How did I end up here? I mean, it's a really funny story. I graduated college, actually had been pre-law, decided not to go to law school. I was too broke and really wanted to get out in the world and kind of electronics and computers. But my brother was in real estate, and we went to lunch a couple times, and he kind of invited me. He said, "Well, why don't you pretend you're my partner on the way home from lunch?" And I did, and I asked, like, "What are you doing? What's that guy do?" And after a couple of those, I said, "This looks like a lot more fun than what I'm doing." And I started in real estate in 1986 in Southern California, in Diamond Bar and Claremont, working new builder financing and resale home financing. And I did mortgages for a while, then moved into real estate. And then at 60, about 5 years ago, I had worked into management. And I think, my generation, we thought management was an upgrade or upward path, but really in real estate, it's not. And I ended up at 60 not liking who I worked for, not liking the ownership at all, making a lot of money. But there's more to life than that, I realized. And as I got to the end of my career, I said, what do I really enjoy doing? And I've always enjoyed selling houses and helping families through difficult problems. I reflected back on the area that I felt I could help most on, which was probate real estate, helping families get through the legal process and through the courts and the administrative process. So I've been the last 5 years really focused in on probate real estate here in Southern California.
Okay. Now, you mentioned 1986. Wasn't there a major change in the real estate market? Something about the Tax Reform Act of 1986 that changed real estate a lot. So you
Well,
you
there was
came in right
that.
when all that was happening.
There was that. And then there also was where interest rates came down for the first time below 10% at that same time.
Right.
And
Well,
the
they'd
economy
been
was
at
really booming.
18 to 20%, like credit card rates for a while. Yes.
Exactly. Exactly. So I will say I did come in kind of in a wave of refinancing, a wave of economic growth, and it made it easier to get started. But then that wave turns back the other way, and you have to work your way through the career
Yeah.
and find a path. But definitely, 86 was a very hot time for real estate investment.
And yeah, that was when the SNL thing was happening. They were all
Mhm.
failing. And yeah, the Resolution Trust Corporation, all that stuff was happening through that time.
I started working for Great Western at the time Savings, later bank,
Yes.
and their slogan was "We'll always be there." And by the way, they're not.
They're
So
not. They Washington Mutual took them over, and now they're gone. I think they're Chase now.
exactly.
And I remember, see, what I remember about Great Western is John Lane was their spokesman back in the 70s.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah. In fact, there's a statue of him on Wilshire Boulevard in La Cienega in front of what was a corporate headquarters for Great Western Bank. Life size of
Yeah.
him on a horse. Beautiful statue that's there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And then you mentioned Diamond Bar. So interesting enough, back in the late 60s, I was really little. We lived in Diamond Bar. At that time, there was no freeways
Oh,
in Bar.
right.
And my dad bought the house there because these were really nice homes. And the builder went belly up because the freeways were late coming in. They
Right.
had built them expecting that commutable. So we moved there, and my dad drove down Imperial Highway to the west side of LA every day. And so,
Wow.
what was that, like a 2 hour commute or something each way? Ridiculous.
Number one, I learned how to drive at that spot at where Imperial and the 57 freeway was being built. Coming north, we would race down to Anaheim and turn around, and come back on the freeway. It was amazing opportunity. And then Imperial, I used to drive Imperial that road all the way to El Segundo. I used to work at
Right.
Hughes Aircraft Company by the airport, so I know that road pretty well.
Yeah, my dad was in the aerospace business, so he worked on the west
Yeah,
side over there.
yeah.
Yeah. So it was interesting you mentioned those two things. Okay, so you got into the probate business, and now explain to for our listeners, for some that may not really understand what that means. As far as they know, probate is just something their tax advisor and their trust attorney warned them to avoid. That's all
Right,
they know.
right. Well, the way I describe it is if you don't have a plan for if and when you die or are incapacitated, the state of California has one for you. It's kind
Right.
of like getting a driver's license to the DMV. It's just not as pleasant as the DMV experience is. It's not as service oriented as the
So
DMV is. And so,
okay.
literally, I have a case where one of the wealthier customers of my career passed with an estate worth, probably a total of $40 million. And between taxes and attorney's fees and such, he'll pass on about half of that to his in this case heir, to his estate, because he didn't have a probate set up. Whereas if he had a probate set up and could have done some tax planning, almost all his assets could have passed in a much more efficient tax wise, and he would have saved tens of millions of dollars.
Does that
So
shock
that's
you
for
that
the
someone with that type of asset base would not have had a plan?
it's there's two. There's also the people who are very modest, have one house and say, well, I don't need it, and when they pass, then the siblings fight over it. Also, there's defects in planning where you may not realize, but a prior marriage, children from a prior issue, or divorces change the ownership rules. And so it's important to have a plan and to review the plan on a regular basis every 5 years or so, because we change and we change our desires. Cases where, somebody passes and they didn't want one of their children to have any other assets, but they didn't write the will properly. So that child gets a third or half the assets. So it's more common. It's not even just not having a plan, it's also not updating it and not executing it properly.
Interesting. Now, so you're in the real estate side. So how does that benefit you? Where is the real estate investment opportunity in Brooklyn?
So about 80% of the assets in a probate are real estate. And so the common case is, a fairly modest family passes and the only asset they have is a house. Now, a house, that you might have bought, after World War II or 1960 in Diamond Bar for $10,000 today is going to sell for $800,000.
Oh yeah.
So all of a sudden, there's a lot of money involved. You have two or three siblings. Well, who decides how that gets spent and who, and when? And oftentimes, one of them's living in the property and the other two just want to sell and get the cash out. So there's a whole myriad of social challenges that all get kind of processed through. But when somebody passes, so I get involved in both we want to sell the property, but then it's well, I want to sell, but I can't because there's a problem. And then my job is to help that customer find a solution to that problem, whether it be bring in the right attorney, the right legal resources, the right eviction attorneys in many cases, cleanup, hazmat, whatever the problem is. My job is to help the customer solve the problem to get the goal, which oftentimes includes selling the property.
So you're beyond a real estate agent and beyond just an investor. You become a moderator and a facilitator to help these people
Yeah,
navigate through that so they can get to the point they can liquidate.
I think the goal in any business is creating value for your customers. And so if a
Mm-hmm.
customer has a problem, if you solve it, you get paid. And one of my first mentors was Zig Ziglar. He said, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. So people don't call me and say, hey, I need a real estate agent to pay a commission to. They call me and say, we'd like to sell our house, but we can't because we have a problem. And I know that means if I help them solve the problem, there's a good chance I'll get paid for selling the house.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the Ziglar quote. Zig Ziglar was is one of my top of my past heroes. I just love
Well,
the guy. I read his books, and I love that quote. But the quote that I related to the most was his quote that he graduated in the half of the class that makes the top half possible. That's the one that I related to the best. So, it was true for me too. He had a lot of humor in his presentations.
I studied
Yeah,
with him. I went to Dallas area for a
I do.
week to do train the trainer with him, and saw him with the redhead and his wife, and
Mhm.
saw he really walked the walk. It was really just an amazing experience in my lifetime was to spend time with him personally.
Yeah, yeah. I saw him live. I want to say three times, One time, my mom took me one time. I think because I was at that time probably about 19, right out of high school, and I think she felt I needed a little bit of attitude input as a teenager.
Me
And so she
too.
took me along and said, I read this guy's book. I think he's good. I don't want to drive to LA by myself. We lived in Ventura. Why don't you come with me? Right. But I think that was her way of getting me in the door and having me exposing me to this talk and this guy. And then as I heard this talk and I was like, I just loved it. And then she gave me the book, The See You at the Top. And I read that book and it just kind of, it really honestly did change the trajectory. My
Yeah,
thinking
it
started
was
going
amazing.
after the Augmendino stuff and there was a lot of other stuff out there at the time that I started reading, and it really did change my perspective on it. So I appreciated him and what he wrote, and the other contemporaries that he had around him at that time. So yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it. Never, I met him once, shook his hand once. That was, but yeah, really enjoyed his stuff. And there's a lot of good people out there now. There's the John Maxwell's out there, and there's some other really good speakers out and I'm a firm believer in self-educating because I
Mm.
think that's the only way to go. We're going to have to take a break. When we come back, what I want to dig into is let's get further into the real estate business. I want to start talking to you when we come back from the break about some of your take on the major media's view of real estate and how accurate that is, where it comes from, and how much of that we need to absorb if we're going to make good decisions. So this is Building Solid Foundations. We're on KCAA 1050 AM. I'm talking to Bill Gross. He is a real estate investor, real estate broker, expert on probate. We'll be right back after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
Tired of qualifying your leads and not getting the right clients for you? Join the finest women in real estate and learn how to attract the best clients and increase your referral network. Call now at 951 378 5316. 951 378 5316 and become one of the finest women in real estate.
This is Steve Matley. Join me every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations radio talk show. I spent decades as a professional construction manager, business owner, real estate developer, and a college educator, and I enjoy learning new things from other people. We talk a lot about real estate, business, and finance, but we cover a diverse range of other topics as well. Some of the topics we've discussed in the past few months include real estate investing, leadership, higher education, ADUs, marketing using technology, multifamily rental properties, business strategy, entrepreneurship. You never know who may show up or what they may talk about. So join us right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations Radio.
Hey guys, it's Damon, Mr. Foxy, Damon Hart, and I'm here with the real men of real estate. And I just want to say, hey, come and watch us this Sunday, 1 p.m. live, every Sunday. Okay, we're going to be on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. If you got a minute, just tune in. We can't wait to have you here. I'm going to be there. If you can't make it on there, we're going to be at Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, or Android app on Building Solid Foundations channel. So tune in. But you know what you got to do in the meantime. Keep it foxy.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. Today we are talking with Bill Gross. He is a real estate broker, a real estate investor, an expert in real estate, and he specializes in probate. We talked about his background before the break, and just before the break, we were getting into what the real estate media, the headlines, and what's out there. We all know that we're supposed to keep ourselves informed. We're supposed to know what's going on. We're supposed to stay current. And most of us naturally then would turn to CNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, all those different sources. We're going to look to the experts, Zillow and Redfin, and those companies that are out there, Compass. Bill, you do a lot of that research. I know you dig in deep on these things, and then you have your own takes on these because you don't just take the headlines at face value. So first, tell us what sources you go to, and then how you kind of analyze what they're saying.
One of my rules in any research is I want to see the original source. So when I see a report about a study, I want to click and read the study because they're always written in English. We went through this whole thing with COVID, and people would say, "Well, you're not a doctor," and I'd say, "Yeah, but the report was written in English, and I read it. It's not complicated. It's written in a language I speak." And so in news, I like to see when people say so and so said something. I like to see the so and so saying that thing rather than taking somebody else's word for it.
Yeah.
I think that there's one change in our life in the news. News went from trusted sources and resources to, for the most part, just mind candy and worthless. In that they have an agenda. They're entertainment. They're not sources of good information to make good decisions for your life. And so nothing wrong with entertainment. Just know that's what it is, and then understand it and take it in as entertainment, not as authoritative. And so, where do I find? I do like to scan what other people are looking at. So I look at Google News for this is the news people are seeing. I like X as a platform where I think most media lives and operates and fights the battle of ideas. And then I like to listen to podcasts of different thought leaders on either side of an issue to hear them in their own words of what they're saying. And so in real estate, unfortunately, we have these big companies that advertise on news, Zillow, Redfin. And so the news sources all treat them like they're gods because they're big customers. CNBC and to them.
When the sponsor is the god of the
right.
program. That's exactly what entertainment companies do. They sell airtime.
Right. So when you watch on CNBC and they interview the chairman of Redfin about the effect of a lawsuit, well, he's just promoting his company and they're treating him in a way that helps him promote his business. It may or may not have anything to do with helping you as a consumer, as a buyer or seller. And so I think
it's kind of an incestuous relationship there.
Very. Yeah. We say that about political news. We all, whether you are for Trump or hate him, or for Biden or hate him, everybody agrees the news is a disaster on both sides. It's even worse when it comes to real estate because it's more blatant. In political news, they're supposed to pretend as though they're impartial. In business news, there's no need to pretend. They're all just corporate organizations.
They don't state it as partial. They just state everything as a fact.
Correct.
As a fact with no basis, and you're just supposed to accept it at face value because they were the experts.
Correct. And it's the stating of the words that frames the debate. I'll give you one example. As a real estate investor, I would never buy a property that was to be rented in Los Angeles County or Southern California or California for that matter. Why? The laws are so anti-owner. There's a goal, I believe. There's a group of people whose goal is to take the property from owners and to give it to people who don't own property. Now, we can debate that, but that's where the laws are forced to. But notice the word we use, squatter. A squatter, maybe if you're driving in a field and you pull over and go to the bathroom, that might be squatting on somebody's land. Or maybe if somebody has 100 acres and you pull off in a little corner, build a little, cabin or something, or a little place to put your sleeping bag, that's squatting. When somebody breaks into your home that you've saved your life to build, that your retirement's based on, and because of them being there, you can't sell the property that's worth $500,000 or rent it and collect $3,000 a month. And top of the $3,000 a month, they're costing you the damage they do. That's not squatting. That's
grand theft.
Grand theft. That's assault. That's breaking in.
Breaking and entering.
So we don't put those people in jail anymore, when they go to stores and do it. So we call them squatters at a house. And to me, it's just so offensive to treat people who are destroying people's lives so poorly. And so, but the news will call them squatters. Now, I on my podcast this week, I highlighted a guy who is a squatter hunter. He had a friend who had brain damage in an automobile accident, and her life savings was a house she was renting. and she couldn't collect the money because this squatter moved in. The squatter was a guy who founded Umani Burger. He was a guy who was living a good life. He's traveling all over the place. And so what this guy did was he got a lease from the lady and moved in alongside the squatter and made the squatter's life miserable. It's on YouTube. It's just hysterical. Flash Shelton is his name. So I do think that at some point it's the language we have to take back and call people out. And there are people who have shameful conduct. I think we need to call them out as having shameful conduct. And the real estate news, I believe, is one of those sources of shameful conduct.
I agree. And again, you mentioned they were entertainment companies, and entertainment companies' job is to sell airtime. And the way you sell airtime is to get people glued to their screens and
Correct.
to appease your sponsors. If you make your sponsor upset, they don't sponsor anymore.
Correct.
And
Correct.
they end up kind of boycotting you as an advertising source, and you're dead. So you do both those things. You keep your sponsor happy and you keep your people glued to the screen. And I always tell people, if you woke up in the morning and turned on CNN and they said, you know what, things aren't really all that bad, it's going to be okay, you're never going to tune in again. They have to scare the hell out of you. Yes.
They need a boogeyman. They need somebody to blame you. So in housing, it's housing affordability. Well, it's really not housing affordability. It's that our politicians have destroyed our economy, sent jobs overseas, spent like drunken sailors would never even spend money into deficits to raise interest rates and make it hard for the average American to buy a house. It's not housing affordability. It's the economic destruction that's gone on during my entire lifetime. But politicians don't want to call it that. They rather talk about the affordability problem or the homelessness problem that they never solve. So really, they have to have a boogeyman. And then I think that's where racism comes in. It's not your fault because you're a person of color. It's this guy's fault because he is discriminated against you. Even if he's a nice guy, it's just the fact he's different than you. It's his fault. It's the owners, not the landlords. It's the owner's fault why you can't buy a house. It's everybody's fault but your own. And the reality is, and you know this from following Zig Ziglar, there's only one person who's going to help you make the income you want. There's only one person who's going to help you build the wealth you want. Now, I'm religious. I say with God's help, that's me. I've got to do the work every day, consistently, with passion, with vigor, and then I can achieve anything. There's nobody to hold me back. And if they're trying to hold me back, I just need to get around them. But the news would rather have you upset and then continue watching than say, I'm going to go out and build my life, turn off the TV or turn off the phone and go out and get to work. They don't want that to happen.
Well, it's extremely validating to know that everything is not my fault. It's just great to know that I'm not responsible for any of the crap or failures that ever happened in my life. It's always them, and I'm a perpetual victim. That's very unfortunately, you spend your whole life that way and you'll never get out of it. Right. And the fact is, where people say, you know, this group's oppressed, that group's oppressed. Right. If you study human history at all, everybody's been oppressed. There has been an extremely small percentage of people that have oppressed other people throughout history. The nobility, the dictators, the despotic military ruler, whoever. That's a very small group, and life has really sucked for the masses across every society, every culture, and every continent on this planet for the history of mankind. And today is as good as it's ever been, if we really look at it. And so you can point fingers and say, I'm a victim because this, but it's not true. And I talk to my students at the school and I tell them, okay, when you talk about the rich people need to do more, if we just got the rich people pony up, how many of you here own a car? How many of you are going to college? Every one of you, because you're here in the classroom, right? How many of you had food to eat last night and you know where your next meal is coming from? How many of you have clean, fresh clothes and backup clothes to wear? How many of you have clean, drinkable water? When you add it all up, I say you realize you are in the top 2% of the wealthiest people on the planet. So you're it. You're the people that need to produce. It's not someone else.
I think it really, and it has to be you individually. You have the ability. It's fascinating to me. Two things I always point out to my wife. We live about a block from Pico Boulevard, a major thoroughfare, where there's a bunch of employees that work at two big dry cleaning facilities, and they'll park in front of our house and they come back to and from work. Almost all of them have fancier cars than me. Now my car's paid off, and to be honest, when we go someplace nice, I take an Uber. My wife and I went to a fundraiser last week. We took an upgraded Uber. Because I don't spend the money on the car. It's much cheaper.
It's a $50 ride versus a $600 a month car payment. Yeah.
But the number of people with $500 or $600 car payments who work at hourly jobs is staggering to me. Then we have a housekeeper, right? She comes and she cleans the bathrooms and makes the beds and that kind of stuff. She always comes with a Starbucks drink that costs about $8. I make my coffee at the house every day. Now I could buy Starbucks. I could afford a lot of things that she can't. But the problem is that she believes she's poor and that's her luxury. That's okay if that's how you want to live. But if you want to get ahead, you save money, you work hard, you put the money towards something, and you create wealth that way. And
You
that's
sacrifice.
where the Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think, book was so clear that
Yes.
it starts with your mindset. And once you commit to the process, you can do anything you want in life if you put yourself to the work.
Absolutely, and that's the old what's the old saying? The rich are rich because they live like they're poor, and the poor are poor because they live like they're rich.
Right.
And when I notice the people that are poor and oppressed, and they have to go break into the retail stores to even the things, they're not stealing diapers and formula. They're not stealing baby food. They're not stealing pharmaceuticals. What are they stealing? Louis Vuitton, Prada, Air Jordans. Right, that's what they're going after, and you realize, okay, so there's a priority thing there because they're not really starving, and they'd be breaking into the grocery store stealing. We're going to
You
have to
might,
take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversation on the end and continue talking with Bill Gross. Bill Gross is a real estate broker, real estate investor, and an expert in real estate probate, having to do with real estate. We will be right back after this. If you want to contact Bill or get to know where he is, he has probateweekly.com. That's his website, probateweekly.com. Great information in there. And linktree.billgross, linktree.billgross. You can find his stuff there as well. We'll be right back after this short.
Tired of qualifying your leads and not getting the right clients for you? Join the finest women in real estate and learn how to attract the best clients and increase your referral network. Call now at 951 378 5316. 951 378 5316 and become one of the finest women in real estate.
This is Steve Matley. Join me every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations radio talk show. I spent decades as a professional construction manager, business owner, real estate developer, and a college educator, and I enjoy learning new things from other people. We talk a lot about real estate, business, and finance, but we cover a diverse range of other topics as well. Some of the topics we've discussed in the past few months include real estate investing, leadership, higher education, ADUs, marketing using technology, multifamily rental property, business strategy, entrepreneurship. You never know who may show up or what they may talk about. So join us right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations Radio.
Hey guys, it's Damon, Mr. Foxy, Damon Hart, and I'm here with the real men of real estate. And I just want to say, hey, come and watch us this Sunday, 1 p.m. live, every Sunday. Okay, we're going to be on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. If you got a minute, just tune in. We can't wait to have you here. I'm going to be there. If you can't make it on there, we're going to be at Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, or Android app on Building Solid Foundations channel. So tune in. You know what you got to do in the meantime. Keep it foxy.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We are talking with Bill Gross today. He is a real estate broker. He is a probate expert, and he is a real estate investor. I met him through the Los Angeles County Real Estate Investor Association that meets over in Culver City once a month. I would check them out if you're interested in real estate at all. It's a great organization. There are a lot of good real estate investor associations out there. Google them, check them out, go to Meetup. You'll find a lot of them. But LA County REIA is a really good sized organization with great people that are doing it. There's newbies in there, but there's a lot of people doing this and have a lot of seasoned experience. So I always tell people, if you want to catch a cold, hang around people that got a cold. If you want to catch real estate investment savvy, hang around with people that have real estate investment savvy. So when we left off, we were kind of talking about the news. We're talking about a little bit about some of the policy things. You mentioned something about the affordability stuff. So, I work in the land side. And one of the affordability issues, because when I first day of economics class in junior college, they taught me about supply and demand, right? And so we have a supply problem here. A supply problem means we're not building new homes, number one. Number two, we have people that are, we have a much higher rental rate now compared to ownership rate than we used to. So those are no longer available to sell to people who want to buy homes because they're being used as rentals. Okay. We have the short-term rentals that people are making money on, which is fine. That takes some out of the market. But the biggest thing to me is there's no replacement homes. There's no new homes.
Right.
When you look at why, there's a reason my company no longer will do California. I live here, but I won't do the work here anymore. Every agency from the state, county, city, all the way down has set up mechanisms to almost prevent new housing from being built. Now they like ADUs in the backyard, but how many families can live in a 700 square foot tiny home? Not very likely. So I find that being a biggest issue. And one thing I've discovered is affordability is a big issue with the politicians, housing affordability. But the other issue is climate change initiatives. And to me, you cannot be a fan of both concurrently. They are opposite agendas. The things we do to engage in climate change mitigation policies are oftentimes the very things that prevent new housing from being built or affordable housing. So I'm interested in your take on that.
Well, I think part of it is we don't have an honest conversation on these issues. The truth is, California's political leadership has made the decision they want to have less people,
Yes.
and when you hear them speaking amongst themselves, them being world leaders at Davos, Bill Gates, those kind of people, they talk about honestly reducing the population of the world and reduce the population of the United States because we consume, in their minds, we consume too much. Now, the opposite of that is Elon Musk, who says we have plenty of room for humanity. He loves humanity. We should have more people. We don't have that debate. What we do is we have a fake debate on climate change that nobody really can document, but it's a cudgel to stop building housing here in California.
And it's a fear-based cudgel.
It's a fear-based cudgel. Same, and affordability is another, is a fake, because what they do is go, wow, affordability, let's have another government program to solve the problem. But the problem is the government power purposely not building houses. So what we're doing is we're giving power to the state government, which is stopping building houses. And their solution is we'll give them more power to stop building houses. And so we don't really have an honest debate in California about how many more houses should we have and how many more people should we have. I think you hit the point. The politicians would love everybody to live in a high rise over a metro station and take the train to and from their home and do their shopping in the store that's right below them and walk home, like in Manhattan, New York. Well, that's not California. That's not how I grew up. That's not the life that I want to live. And that's not the life that most Americans want to live. But that's really what's going on. And I just don't feel like we're having an honest conversation about those values. We're really, it's more of a tug of war between the side that wants to control us and then those of us who are free trying to pull apart from that.
Yeah, and caveat on there, I'm not opposed to things that help the earth. I live here. And I've never met anybody that says I'm opposed to a healthy earth ever. I've never met that person. But if you raise anything up and raise the question and say, is this really the right thing to do, the right priority, then all of a sudden it's, oh, so you're you hate the earth. Well, no, I don't. I like clean air. I like clean water. But I also know that people should have safe, affordable, accessible housing because that is one of the basic food, shelter, and clothing. If we can, that's the basics you need to provide. And I see that there's a lot of initiatives out there that are preventing that from happening. And I think you're right. A lot of it has to do with the control thing and an ideology that says we all need to, I said, live in the populated center of everything. That's not practical. Now, the people that advocate that, we take mass transit, we live in a small apartment, we're all okay. Where do they live?
Multiple mansions in multiple
mansions, yeah, with big gates around.
Nancy Pelosi has a mansion in San Francisco and a mansion in Palm Beach. Bernie Sanders has 5 mansions, and he was asked the question. He was like, "Well, I have one in Washington, and I have one here, and I have a mountain home. Does everybody have one?" I'm like, "Well, no. Most people are lucky to own one house, let alone have 5 houses."
Or rent. So, a lot of them are. Most people are renting. Yeah, they're renting an apartment somewhere.
And I think that's.
And how do they get around? Do they take the? I've never seen any of the politicians I know on a light rail or on a bus, and that, unless they're cutting a ribbon for a new line or something.
Right. Right. And so I think this is where people need to wake up and realize that they're telling us how they want us to live because that empowers them to live the life they want to live that they haven't earned. And it's something that we as Americans need to take our power back. Jamie Dimon's a perfect example of a guy who was an attorney of a failed bank, but he got signed into it, and then they merge up and merge up and merge up. The guy's never lent anybody money. Banks were originally guaranteed by the government to help Americans buy home loans to get houses. And now we have Chase, who's too anxious to lend money to Chinese corporations that are taking American jobs, not as interested in doing mortgages to American homeowners. And so we've really given power to these people, and they have so much, and they keep taking more and more. And at some point, we have to take the power back as the citizens if we want to enjoy the lifestyle and the freedoms we want. In California, and I live here, we've pretty much just ceded the whole thing and said, no, we'll live in towers and we'll live in the city and let crime go crazy. And we have nobody to blame but ourselves for that outcome.
Well, there's been a concerted effort over multiple generations to teach people that that is the only way we can live. You know, I work in a school, a college, and it's architecture based, and so we talk about urban planning and those things, and that is embraced. You know, the AIA out there has their mantra, and all of that just falls in line with all those core values that we all have to live in the urban environment. We all have to take mass transit. Everything has to be sustainable. We're all about windmills and solar energy, and I'm not opposed to any of those things. I'm actually in escrow on a house right now in Arizona. It's got solar panels on it. I love the fact it's got solar panels on it.
Right.
I don't know that that dictates that I need to tell all my friends and neighbors that's the only way to do anything. It doesn't.
I don't mind you telling everybody to do it. It's when the only people telling you that you have to do it have a gun and a badge called the government. That's where the problem is. And I think when we really look deeper, the people who are making these decisions are not educated. They're not successful. They're not successful businessmen telling us to do these things. These are bureaucrats who do this because it gives them power. And I think we as citizens need to take the power back. There's nothing wrong with it's so fascinating. Nothing wrong with having electric cars if that's what you want to drive. The problem is the government saying you can't have non-electric cars after a certain date. That's where the problems start to come into play when people who don't know what they're talking about dictate policy and take away freedoms from us Americans.
Well, and when they do it with a complete lack of full information, they don't disclose the fact that where's the power coming from? The car doesn't produce the power. Where does the power come from? Mostly from fossil fuels. So they don't run. We also learned that in the last the weather we had, that cars don't charge when it gets too cold. You're not going anywhere. Are you going to walk and take mass transit when it's too cold to go outside? That's when you really need your car. But you can't do it. So they don't have those conversations. They don't acknowledge that there is a place for electric cars. I think if you are commuting back and forth every day on a fairly long commute, I think an electric car is a great way to go. If you can drive it, charge it while you're at work, drive it home, charge it while you're at home, that's a great way to go. I think they also miss that when they're shoving everybody in the apartment buildings, a lot of them don't have charging abilities at those apartment buildings. They weren't built that way. And it's a huge infrastructure thing to try and upgrade everybody's apartment and condo building to have electric cars in the garage.
And I think all this ties into why real estate is such a great opportunity for business, in that increasingly companies are having a hard, just like we as citizens are having our lives squeezed in, so are companies. Increasingly, California companies are moving manufacturing to other states and into other businesses in other states where they have more freedom to do things. But two things about real estate are unique. One is there's still real estate here that's valuable. Industrial real estate is doing very well. Residential property, the right properties are still doing very well.
It's still appreciating.
And number two, you can invest in other states from California. And so increasingly what I found in the last 5 years, COVID accelerated that, but started before, was increasingly people able to invest across the country and use our competitive market of California as an example, and then use those principles in other states and do well. So that's unique opportunity of real estate. Is I live here, but I do business across the country, and it gives me the opportunity to enjoy my grandkids that live nearby and the beautiful beaches and weather of California, as well as doing business nationally.
I agree with that. And you mentioned earlier that not wanting to have rental property here in California, that's a mantra of mine as well. So I live here in California. I do not own real estate in California. I rent my place in San Diego over the bay, mostly because it's half the cost as if I tried to buy one of these units and pay the HOA and all the stuff. I own property in multiple states across the country. I own land, I own homes, I have different things. And that's, as you said, the opportunities are over there, and that allows me to be able to afford to live here. and I don't really want the part. One thing I've looked at real estate when you own in California is when they pass the next kind of crazy idea, the leverage they have, of course, is leaning your real estate. That's always the leverage they have.
It's inevitable. I think you're right.
Yeah.
It's funny you say this. I also invest out of state in real estate, and I'm in escrow for a fix and flip here in LA. And I've told myself all along I would never do that, but the margin was just so fat. I couldn't. I could pass on it, or I could flip it over to somebody else right away. It's just too good, and I'm not going to. But I think you're right. The challenge of California is that the business is different here, and yet I know people who do well because that's all they do. They know the eviction laws, they know the city planning procedures. They can work on lower margins and made that work for them. So that's not me today.
There's a lot of money to be made in California real estate. So I don't want anybody out there listening to get this wrong. California real estate is still extremely lucrative, and it will continue to appreciate.
Just find your niche and work it really well. And I think that's the thing I find is my brother-in-law is president of a large REIT of industrial properties. That's all he does is industrial properties. I have other clients who work in other niches, multifamily rentals in the South Bay, but they know the South Bay and they know that product. So definitely it's a very competitive market. You have to know the niche really well. But again, for me, the nice thing is I can do business now with technology across the country. So
we're going to take another short break. When we come back, we'll wrap up this with our last segment with Bill Gross. Bill Gross, you can contact him at probateweekly.com. Go to linktree.billgross. He is a real estate expert, real estate investor, probate expert, and we'll be right back after this short.
Tired of qualifying your leads and not getting the right clients for you? Join the finest women in real estate and learn how to attract the best clients and increase your referral network. Call now at 951-378-5316. 951-378-5316 and become one of the finest women in real estate.
This is Steve Matley. Join me every Thursday at 3 p.m. right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations radio talk show. I spent decades as a professional construction manager, business owner, real estate developer, and a college educator, and I enjoy learning new things from other people. We talk a lot about real estate, business, and finance, but we cover a diverse range of other topics as well. Some of the topics we've discussed in the past few months include real estate investing, leadership, higher education, ADUs, marketing using technology, multifamily rental properties, business strategy, entrepreneurship. You never know who may show up or what they may talk about. So join us right here on KCAA for Building Solid Foundations Radio.
Hey guys, it's Damon, Mr. Foxy, Damon Hart, and I'm here with the real men of real estate. And I just want to say, hey, come and watch us this Sunday, 1 p.m. live, every Sunday. Okay, we're going to be on KCAA Radio, 1050 AM, 106.5 FM. If you got a minute, just tune in. We can't wait to have you here. I'm going to be there. If you can't make it on there, we're going to be at Roku TV, Amazon Fire TV, or Android app on Building Solid Foundations channel. So tune in. You know what you got to do in the meantime. Keep it foxy.
Fire Up Connect is the most innovative business networking group, supporting and collaborating with a dozen of small businesses that are interested in building and establishing strong business connections, hosting educational live seminars while carrying out business and community-driven projects, as well as marketing programs as a part of its membership program. Fire Up Connect also offers virtual assistance with a wide range of services including inbound customer support, chat support, appointment setting and email management, graphic designing, video editing, web design and development, social media marketing, e-commerce solution, content writing and much more. For more information, head on over to www.fireupconnect.com. Fire Up Connect, helping success stories unfold every day.
Welcome back to Building Solid Foundations. I'm your host, Steve Matley. We are on KCAA 1050 AM all over Southern California. Don't forget you can catch us on the Building Solid Foundations channel. That's a free channel you can download on Android, Roku, or Amazon Fire. We're also on your favorite podcast platform, probably. We're through Spotify. And we post up on YouTube from time to time as well with some clips. So check us out and we have a lot of great guests on here, including the one I've got today, which is Bill Gross. He's been a fascinating conversation. Love talking with Bill, extremely knowledgeable. And I like that Bill digs in below the surface of what you've read. You've read these things in the newspaper, you saw the headlines, you saw the clickbait on your social media. But when you dig in, I love the fact that he goes into and says, okay, who said what? First of all, who's the who? And secondly, what's the what? And
Yep.
verify both those things. So, Bill, in that realm, there is a recent decision that came down. It has to do with real estate commissions in the state of California. There was a lawsuit over that. Fill the listeners in on what that is and what that might mean.
Well, it's actually national. It's a court case
Okay.
that started in Missouri, in St. Louis, in a federal court there. And there was a group of people suing on behalf of sellers of real estate nationwide. And there's a settlement from the National Association of Realtors of almost $500 million, $500 million, that purports to dramatically change the way we do real estate. Now, I think there's a lot of excitement in the news about it. There's a lot of headlines, I think, that are more puffery than real. The truth is, a lot of the procedures that they implement in that settlement, we already have in California. So there'll be a tightening up, I think, and a reconfirmation. But I don't know that business will change that much, with the one difference being that whereas now real estate agents will publicize to buyer's agents the commission they're offering on a listing, that's going to go away. I believe cause some confusion amongst how do buyer's agents get paid and how much they get paid and things like that. But the thing you have to watch is who's saying what's going on and what's their interest in it. Because even still with this recent announcement, it doesn't cover all real estate agents. It covers 1 million out of 1.5 million. So there's still a long ways to go in this process. I think the thing that's most troubling as a taxpayer, as a businessman, is do we really want our entire real estate industry thrown in upheaval by one federal judge in St. Louis and 12 jurors picked out of St. Louis and one attorney who's suing an industry in St. Louis? Is that really how we want to organize real estate buying and selling across the entire country? At some point, I think the answer is no. At some point, we have laws, we have laws in California, we have laws in the United States to protect all of us to do business the way that we all agree to do it. And I think the idea of some attorney in St. Louis suing politicians in Missouri, I think there's no way that ends well for everybody. It's going to be bad for everybody but the attorney and both attorneys and the politicians that can make some money off of all that. So stay tuned. I'm sure this is going to be a battle that's going to be fought for the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what we see is we debate issues. We debate candidates, vote for this person, vote for that person at the local level, school district level, state level, federal level. And then the things that seem to affect us the most come from an individual somewhere who makes a ruling somewhere. Right. And I always tell people one reason that I have an issue with California is they change the rules in the middle of the game a lot, because a judge makes a ruling and you can't predict it, and it just shows up and it changes the rules in the middle of the game. The governor makes an edict, which he's not supposed to do edicts, but they do. And so all of a sudden that changes. The legislature goes and does something crazy. Or worse, and I find the worst part is when all my friends and neighbors go to the ballot box and pass an initiative without any idea of what it really does. And some of the most ridiculous ideas that come through that, you can't even blame the politician. That's just the voters directly. And all those things combined, I mean, it's how do you play the game? When we started playing hockey and ended up with volleyball and then found ourselves in Australian rules football.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I read an article where at the end of the fiscal year, Governor Newsom signed 60 laws relating to real estate the last week of the fiscal year. 60 different laws, probably each a couple hundred pages. There's no way you read any of it. And yet each of those laws has buried in it different changes, different rules, different guidelines. And I think at some point we need to rein in the power of the government. Otherwise, we're just choking on paperwork and regulations. And every day you see businesses that are leaving here for that reason, and the rest of us here are left with more challenging circumstances. And I think that I do see increasingly people getting fed up with it and starting to push back. But it's going to require all of us to say, no, we don't want to give all our power to Sacramento. We want to, run our businesses, build our equity, build our own, financial fortunes, and teach our kids the way we want to. And we don't need all that much help.
Yeah, I remember a quote from one of Ayn Rand's books that I read that said, one of the characters says, "What's the use in passing laws if the right people don't break them?" So it's like, So you pass a law because you're after a certain group or type of person,
Exactly.
but it affects everybody.
Right.
And is it that they pass so many laws that everybody every day is going to break a law and have no idea that they did it?
I've been in real estate since 1986. There is not one law that's been passed that's helped make it better for people to afford to buy a house for their family. The best law is not spending any money, which allows us to keep more of our own money so we can save it and then use that money to buy a house or improve the house we live in. So at the end of the day, we have to stop looking to government for the solution. And that's the beauty of real estate. And that was the message from Zig Ziglar, to go back to the beginning of our conversation, was at the end of the day, we got to take responsibility for our own lives and not turn to the laws and turn to politicians in Washington and Sacramento to solve these problems, but we need to work hard to save money and invest on our own. And that's the opportunity that real estate uniquely, I think, offers everybody a chance to build their own nest egg through, with the favorable tax laws for real estate and the opportunities that exist for real estate.
And the thing, a lot of laws are very well intentioned, but when you pass additional laws, you give attorneys reasons to go after you. Now they have something they can point to and say, look,
Yep.
and say, I don't look at attorneys as the ultimate enemy to everything, but some are, most aren't. But they have to generate business, and every attorney that kind of, I guess, is unscrupulous means they have an unscrupulous clients, and that's just what it is. And so why create additional power for that? On a positive note, though, overall, despite what you're reading in the headlines, I think real estate is still very strong. And I firmly believe that if you read all the headlines from the last 4 or 5 years, you will consistently see there's a downturn coming. This year is going to be the year we see the drop, but the whole bubble is going to burst. And it hasn't yet. And what does that tell you? It tells you that things are still moving along just fine. Stop panicking. Stop being afraid. We're not going in the dumper.
Well, I don't know if we are or not, but I will say this: whether go in the dump or not, the big we, there's always opportunity. And I would say this: there's never been a better opportunity in my career than right now. There's more cash available, looking for deals, and because of the challenges people are feeling, there's opportunities to buy and make money in a way that there's never been in my career.
Absolutely.
There's more flexibility, more technology, more information available. So for me, I mean, I worked really hard. I thought I'd be retiring by now, to be honest, but business is just too good and I'm enjoying it too much. And it's because this is the greatest opportunity of my career right now. And I think that's for anybody who's paying attention. But here's the thing: you got to work hard, you got to learn, you got to get around the right people.
Yes. Educate yourself. The number one mitigating factor to fear in real estate investing is knowledge. Get around people that know what they're doing. And if you don't know everything, partner with some people.
Yep.
We got to wrap it up, Bill. Thank you for being on the show. This is Building Solid Foundations. Bill Gross has been my guest, real estate broker, probate real estate expert. Go to probateweekly.com, go to linktree.billgross, check him out. This is Building Solid Foundations on KCAA 1050 AM all over Southern California. I'm your host, Steve Matley. And until next week, go do something different.
Miss your favorite show?